like if you were shoveling a hole, that you will get blisters on your hand, and then when you go back out the next day it starts to bleed, and you go back out the next day and it starts to bleed, but then it recalluses and you open it back up. That is growing a business.
Everyone, Dee here from Halcyon HR Consultancy, and I'm very excited to introduce you to Billie Sharp. Billie, welcome.
Hi, thanks so much for having me. I'll just go ahead and I'll introduce myself. So basically, I am what I would self-consider a serial entrepreneur. So at the moment, we own 6 businesses, actually 5, because we just sold one yesterday. So, and this is why I say serial entrepreneur, because it just scales. Like, it's really, really crazy. So that's what I do. But I'm also a mom, and we homeschool, and I have my husband as well. And I started, I think like the biggest part about my story is I started in business out of my own 6 years ago. And I think that's an important definition, because you have to consider the experience I had in business before I went out on my own. But I basically started 6 years ago with $200, and now we've scaled dramatically. We had a business like overall valuation, I can't remember what it was called, but a special type of valuation where it valued all of our businesses and personal assets in September last year. And it was valued at over 28 million. So to go from $200 to 28 million in 6 years, I think is like a huge path.
That's impressive.
It is impressive, but I think what's really important too is like people hear this number of like 28 million and they're like, oh, you're so rich, but that's not true. Like 28 million is tied up in all the businesses. Like I think Mr. Beast says this really well. He's like, apparently I'm a billionaire, but I can't afford McDonald's. Like he's like, I couldn't even, my card declined at Macca's drive-through. And I think that's the reality, right? Like cash flow is king. There's so many, like you can have all of this net worth, but what's the profit? There's so many moving parts in a net worth evaluation. And I think people don't really understand that. And I personally didn't until I had to go through it as well. So yeah, but that is what I do. That is me. We own businesses in the across the tech, service, and e-com space, and the e-com business is the business that we've just sold. So right now we're just focusing on tech and service, and currently we are in the process of selling pretty much all of our businesses except for our online businesses, which are a marketing agency and a business coaching business, because we are moving to Vietnam. So anything location-based has to be sold so that we can shift to Vietnam.
That is exciting. Vietnam's so cool though. It's one of the places that's on my bucket list. But so you're talking about scaling these businesses. Like you had $200, and I think this is really freaking awesome. $200, and obviously a background though before you just went and woke up one day and said, I'm going to start a business. So let's map out that journey, because a lot of small businesses pop up, but then equally a lot of them close within the first 3 years because they just don't have that that drive or the right framework to see them through the initial starting phase of having a business.
Yeah, so basically I had worked as an operations manager in shipping. So I knew, like, legit, when you work in operations, if you've never worked in operations before, that is honestly, in my belief, the core of any business. So that is like your systems, your processes, your structures. Like operations deal with accounting, they deal with every part of the business. So it is, in my opinion, the most important role. So if you have never worked in that kind of logistical area, it can be really hard going into your own business. So I'd already done that. And then from there, I had worked as a general manager, so like the next level up, and I'd also worked as a chief financial officer. So I understood the financial aspects of having a business. When I decided to go out on my own, I should have received a payout from my last employer of around 25 grand in entitlements. That to date has still never been paid out to me. So when I initially started, I thought I would have like this payout that I could use to invest in starting my new business, which initially basically what I was like, okay, how can I take my skills that I have learned across these years and deliver it? So I started researching it a lot, And the number one thing that was coming up was business coaching. Now, I already had a diploma in business, but I think more importantly, I had the hands-on experiences. Specifically, I'd always worked in small business, and it was through construction, shipping, and mining. So that was kind of my area of expertise. So then I went and before I left and started on my own, while I was working full time, I did an NLP course. And to do that, to get my certificate, I actually had to do 500 hours of unpaid coaching. So I had to learn, and I've spoken to so many people, and this is not a part of their course to become a coach. So I really had to learn, what was it to become a coach? What did that look like? Helping people for free for 500 hours, which is a lot of hours. It basically took me 9 months to get the certificate. And then when I first started out on my own, I was like, okay, cool. I'm going to have this big budget of 25 grand. I can buy a coach. I can do all of these different things. And then that just didn't eventuate. So I just had my $200 and I was like, okay, well, what do I do? And I'll be honest, for the first 4 months, I basically woke up every single day. I got dressed as if I was going to work, full business attire, did full business makeup, and went and sat in my home office and just sat at my desk and was like, now what? I watched every free YouTube video on how to start a business. I did so many things. And then I actually was in back in the day before Uber was a thing, there was a company in our local town and they had their own rideshare business. It wasn't a taxi service, but it was a rideshare business. Anyway, I was talking to him and he was telling my husband that he was really struggling with managing the cash flow side of it. And I was in the back and he was like, oh, that's what my wife does. She could definitely help you with that. So he actually teed this all up. I had this first consult meeting with him the next day and he signed up instantly. He was like, yes, I want you to help me. But it was in that moment that I realized that everything else that I was listening to, hearing, was just noise. It wasn't moving me forward. I was just doing what everyone else was telling me to. I wasn't listening to my own intuition. I wasn't listening to how I knew how to help people. I wasn't listening to anything that my own self was telling me because I'd never done it before. So I wasn't trusting myself. I didn't know what to do. And then from there, as soon as I realized, okay, you've just got to trust yourself, I was like, I genuinely believe I can help these businesses from closing down. And in our town at the time, small businesses were closing down. Mum and dad businesses all around the town were closing. So I just started reaching out, being like, hey, this is who I am and I think I can help you. And to the point that if I wasn't getting 5 no's a day, I wasn't calling enough people.
Yeah, love that outreach, guys. It's so important.
I was just on the phone constantly, going into their stores, everything, and that's where it all started. Me, I just did one-on-one coaching, and then I obviously I went into courses because that's how you can scale really quickly and have that income. I was generating at that time around $700,000 a year in course sales, and if you've ever run courses, right, the thing is, people don't do them. And that does not sit morally with me. So I was looking at my bank balance going, okay, I'm generating all this money, but I'm genuinely not helping people. And I didn't go into business. I went into business to help. So I'm like, this is not good. So I called my accountant. I was like, I don't want to do this anymore. She was like, you can't just stop that. That's your cash. I was like, I don't care. Fine. We need to find another way because I hate this. Yeah. So, and then that's how our marketing agency was born. Basically, it was from a need from our clients asking. So I was just deep diving into the current business model I'd created, going, okay, how can we find another source of income where we're genuinely helping people? Because selling courses to me doesn't feel genuine. And I basically have spent the last 6 years redoing coaching in a variety of different ways up until November last year, and we launched the Bazillionaire Academy. And basically the academy is something I wish I had when I'd first started out. It has a million different courses and resources and everything like that in there, but it also has a weekly call, and it's $25 a week, cancel anytime. So there's no lock-in contract. You're not locked in. You can just leave because everyone else charges so much money. And then you get locked in, you're stuck there for 6 months, 12 months. What if you don't like me?
What if your circumstances change, guys?
Yeah. What if you want to have a baby now? What if, there's so many things. That's why I'm like, no. And And like I said, like I make money now in other ways. I went into business to help people. So this is like my way of giving back as well. So I'm like, yeah, that's why it's so low cost. But there's so many resources in there. It's insane. People get in there and they're like, how is this only $25? I'm like, because I'm just created something I wish that I'd had. That's all it is.
Yeah. And at $25 a week, that is such a low entry point. Like $25, try it, buy it. Like, come on.
Leave. Yeah.
We literally spend more money on dinner, right? Like $5, you get a week access, no lock-in fees. I'm giving you a plug, but look, why not? Because it's $25. There's no risk here. It's not like a business coach asking you for $3,000 of your hard-earned money, and you sit there and go, well, how many hours have I worked to get this, and what's my return on investment? Like $25.
Yeah, and don't get me wrong, I don't think it's a good business model if this is your first business. Like I wouldn't be like, hey, if you're going into this and you want to sell $25, it's not. Because if you want to do $1 million business, all of a sudden you need like 1 million people in this to make $25, right? So it's not a great business model from that sense, but I'm making money in other areas that's allowing me to do this. So you've got to be really mindful of that too. Like when you're building out your first business, how are you making that money? Where is that money coming from? What does that structure look like?
Know your figures, know your people.
Yeah. Yeah. And understand like, okay, this is my IP. This is what I'm really good at. How do I package that into a saleable item? And at what tier points? And I always tell people like work out like the minimum amount you need this week. So if you know your job is giving you say $2,000 a week or $1,200 a week, whatever it is, then that's the amount you need to live, right? That's the first goal. That should be your first goal, is to make that amount of money. And then from there you can scale it up. And you're like, okay, now I need more and more and more. And that's, you create models that fit that number. But people people just start, I think, too heavy. They're like, oh, I want $1 million business, or I want to do $10,000 a month or $50,000 a month. I'm like, that's great. And you can get there, but let's start like here. Like you're on Centrelink. How are we going from Centrelink to
$1 million business?
Yeah. Like, I'm not saying it's impossible. It's obviously not, but we have to be realistic about this too. And I think this is the thing, like they set these huge goals and then they don't get there as quickly as they'd hoped. And then that you lose so much, just like you get so sad about not reaching that goal. So then you just give up.
I think that's such a common pain point though for a lot of business owners, especially from our perspective too. Oh, we tried this and it didn't work. Okay, but your goal was, a quarter of the time. Look at the stadiums. They say, oh, it's going to be ready in 3 months' time, and then 12 months down the track, we're still complaining about the roadworks. Guys, like they get it wrong. How are we going to get it right? So absolutely being mindful that those timelines need to be realistic, and setting in the buffer so that if it doesn't work out in that timeline, hey, we're still okay with that. Life happens. Sometimes business doesn't go to plan, but you keep pushing forward, right?
Yeah.
So on that topic, I guess, there's so much there to unpack. 3 tips, I guess, for the startups, the people that have already had a business for maybe say 3 to 5 years, and the people that are looking to take that next step, like they've got that goal, they've already reached quite a few of them, and they're looking to maybe hit that $1 million mark, like they're that close, that type of thing. What would be 3 tips, I guess, to reach those 3 levels?
Yeah, so I think what we find is, and as I've scaled businesses over the years, what we find is that first 100K a year is kind of like that, it's a hard spot to reach. And then the next one is that $300,000 a year. Then I find people get stuck. It's either between 3 to 500. They get stuck between that and $1 million. They really do. And they just don't have the models in place to scale that there. And then after $1 million, going from $1 million to 10 million is quite difficult. And then after you're at that 10 million mark, it gets much easier.
Right.
So it does. And that's the craziest part. But it's that shift between, and the reason I think it's so hard is because from 0 to 100, you're on your own, right? You are on your own. There's no staff. You probably don't even have an EA. Like you're wearing 24 million hats. You are getting pulled 12 different directions and you're ready to cry every minute. That's 0 to 100. Like that is the truth. All right. And then that 100 to 300, 500 mark is usually a little bit nicer. You usually have yourself, you have maybe a couple of 2 or 3 people. But this is where I find a lot of business owners, especially women, they're very empathetic.
Yeah.
They are so way too kind to their staff or their subcontractors. They are way too lenient. They are slow to fire, right? So the biggest tip is always like, it should be slow to hire, fast to fire.
100%. So I say that again, just like I say this so many times, like, guys, I'm not rushing to fill your vacancy because there's no point. I'll just be firing them next week. So I say this to my clients. They all know this. I will take my time in hiring. But when it comes to firing someone, you betcha I'm going to do it as quickly as safely possible.
Yeah, obviously, like you want to make sure you are. But I think the thing is, usually, you know, within the first like 4 weeks if they're going to work out or not. And I see so many business owners say, "I'll just give them until this day." I'm like, but they're not working now. Yeah. Like, what is the point of giving them? But they have a family to feed. Mate, your job is to feed your family and everyone else's. Just because you're firing them, you're going to feed somebody else's family. Like, you have to really, you are responsible for the growth of that business at the end of the day, right? I have some of the best team that I will take my hat off to. And I think in some instances, they care about the businesses more than I do. Genuinely believe that. However, that is a very small amount of people. You have to be the one you have to have those hard conversations. I am not a very empathetic person. That does not mean I like firing people. I don't like having those conversations. They're hard and they suck, but that's your job as a business owner.
Yeah, look, they do suck, especially before Christmas time. Guys, know this. They know how heavy December is. So last December we did, I think, 4 within a week, and that was brutal for not just obviously the people getting fired, but for the team that have to come in and do that. It is tough, but that is part of business. Carrying their weight through is not going to serve your business. It's not going to serve them either when both know this isn't the right fit.
So I think like
without them.
Yeah, so I think that's the problem from that 100 to 500 is staffing usually is the biggest. Then when we see that scaling into 1 million, it's normally core foundation and structure.
Yeah.
People don't have the right systems and processes, or they haven't thought about their business model to even scale to $1 million. Yeah. And I think if we go and usually people don't even look at this until this point here, but if you're just starting out and you're like, hey, okay, there's this magical number that from a profit margin perspective, I think all businesses should be aiming for, and that's 66% profit.
Yes.
Right? And people are like, oh, that's only for like an e-com or a product-based business. I disagree. Service-based businesses should also run at 66% profit. I don't know a business that runs at 66% profit and fails, right? So, and if you find one, let me know, because the thing is, it's almost impossible to fail at that amount of profit. So if you know from day one, all of your products have that amount of profit margin built into it, it allows you this buffer to reinvest however much you want to continue to scale. And then that's how we get to that million. Then that 1 million to 10 million is usually around personal growth. It comes down to you. You block yourself 1 million different ways. It's all about you as the business owner, who you want to be, who you're willing to step in to be. And I got stuck at that $1 million mark after about 3 years, and it took me about another 2 years to really break through. And I would say in the last 12 months, I always am doing personal work and have done the entire time, but the last 12 months are some of the most intense personal work that I've had to go through to scale like we've never scaled before.
Yeah. So that's it too. It's not about just the business as a separate thing. It's you as well. You need to be ready to take that step up. You need to have the mindset, the drive, all of that to actually take that business that next step. And if you don't, then it won't. It's quite simple.
And I guess a part of me definitely thought like, oh, I've worked through that stuff, or that doesn't bother me, but it shows up in blocks in other ways. And I've heard people say, oh, you can hire people in your business and then you can step out to scale past that point. I disagree, because you're still going to be holding them back unless you are 100% out, which I don't think any business owner truly ever is. You continue to block that person.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's, like you said, they're 100% out, and that's full, hands off. You take the off they go, and you're prepared to just sit back and watch them either succeed or fail with your business, which again, that doesn't happen, does it?
It's crazy.
Okay, I love all of that. If you had one thing you could go back and change, given that I guess you're probably well ahead of what a lot of our audience is, if you could go back, change anything, what would it be?
Look, I probably would just be kinder to myself, to be honest. I think, you know, even now I still get days where sometimes it just hits me. So like we have over 50 staff across all of our businesses, and like there was a point in last year where I woke up in the morning totally fine, and I don't know what happened, but it just hit me all of a sudden. Like it was coming up towards Christmas time. Christmas is such a hard time financially because everyone closes, that cash flow slows down. And all I could think was like, that's right. There was one of our businesses, we couldn't afford to give everyone a bonus. And that was weighing heavy on me. Not that a bonus, and this is the craziest part, bonus isn't in their contract. A bonus it's just me emotionally wanting to give them a bonus at Christmas for their hard work. And the business wasn't ready for that. And then I start to overthink everything. And it got to the point where I just ended up laying on my bathroom floor, crying myself to sleep at like 10 o'clock in the morning, because the weight of me recognizing that I was supporting 50 families just became overwhelming, right? And I woke up and I felt totally fine, but you're still going to get those moments. And I think if I had have been like, just be kinder to myself along the journey, I think all of the things that have happened on the journey have taught me I wouldn't go back and change any of those, because that's just now knowledge that I have. But I think, just being a little bit kinder to yourself in those moments is more important, and understanding that when you're doing the personal work and going through all of those shifts, that when you are kinder to yourself, you'll come back out the other side much faster with a better outlook.
I love that. So with that, so you told us a little bit about the businesses that you have.
Yeah.
You're selling some. The ones that you're keeping, tell us about those.
Yeah, so I'm keeping the Bazillionaire Academy basically because I can just I only do, most of that's hands off. So unless I want to build a new course or add something in there, and then the call a week, mostly it's hands off when we're in a chat. And then the marketing agency is like, it's my baby. Like I love it. I love marketing. I love psychology. There's everything about marketing that I love. So for me, that's why it's such an important part for me to keep. We do have some other businesses that we could have kept that are online that we are getting rid of. It's just a good time to sell, really. But yeah, that's the two that we're keeping, and that's why we've decided to keep them. I guess too, it's at a point where we are in a financial position where we could sell everything and never work again. Like that is our reality. We could just invest and live off that investment money, because our lifestyle that we choose to live is actually very minimal. Our living costs day to day are pretty low. But for me, my personal goal is to become a billionaire, because I want to drive real change. And I believe to do that, we need money, because I think money is power. And I don't know what that change looks like. I imagine that would be some kind of board where people come to us with issues and we invest in solutions to those problems. It would be something like that. But I need money to be able to do that. So for me, there's this fire in me that just can't stop. I have to keep going. I have to reach this goal. I have to be able to give back and leave the earth way better than I found it. And not just the earth, but humanity. Like, I think there's so much negativity and hate in the world, and that's not what I'm about. So for me, I just need to leave the world a kinder place. And if that means I get to have fun in business and make money and give back, then I'm all for it.
How's that for ethical business, which I love? So if people want to get in contact with you, there is still time. How can they do that?
Yeah, honestly, the easiest way is to find me on Facebook, which is just Billie Sharp, and add me as a friend, or follow me on Instagram or TikTok, and just get to know me. Like I give away so much free advice anyway, just because that's who I am and I'm in the business world all the time. So don't ever feel like you have to buy from me. Come follow me, join along on the journey, ask questions along the way. My inbox is still open to everyone. I still get probably 10 to 15 direct messages a day asking for help, and I never turn anyone away. I never say, oh, you've got to join this academy. I don't say that. I usually try and help, and if I can't help, I'll try and put you onto somebody that can.
Yeah, And just for context, guys, I literally reached out via Instagram, sent Billie a message and was like, hey, are you interested in high level collabs? And I was like, yeah, let's chat. So it's not scary. It's not daunting. As Billie said earlier, if you're not getting 5 no's a day, you're not trying hard enough. So send those messages, pick up the phone, make that step, right? Like that's how we're going to grow. But yeah, I think that's really fantastic. If people have questions, absolutely reach out. Look, in closing, is there anything else you would like people to know? Something that they really have to know right now?
Look, I think there's a lot of talk around AI. I'm huge on AI right now. I'm probably secretly a super tech nerd that AI is out way harder than I show anyone online. So if you ever want to know about stuff, I definitely know about it. But I think the biggest thing is that, you know, we talk a lot about business owners not being successful, they close their business, things like that. The more successful, people think that the more successful you become, the easier it becomes. It doesn't. I talk about it in a way that, like, if you were shoveling a hole, that you will get blisters on your hand, and then when you go back out the next day, it starts to bleed, and you go back out the next day and it starts to bleed, but then it recalluses and you open it back up. That is growing a business. Okay, it's not easy. It's not for everyone. It's not pretty. It is brutal, and I think unless you're willing to bleed into the earth a little bit, it's not going to give it back to you. So you really have to hang in there, and I think you just get better at it. Eventually you do build those calluses and those issues become nothing, and you'll have other ones. But don't think that you're going to stop getting kicked, or, you know, and if you hate it and it isn't for you, it's not for everyone, and that's okay. You've just got to find what is for you.
Yeah, absolutely. Being in business is not for everyone, but maybe finding the right business. This is my second business. My first business, I thought I loved it. I actually love this one so much more. I was equally passionate about that one too, but that was a separate time, a past time, I guess. Now I've leveled up, as we talked about earlier. We've leveled up. Now this business is what fills my cup. But in saying that doesn't mean I failed. Doesn't mean anyone else has failed. If their first business doesn't work out, you try again. If that is,
and you got to take all your lessons that you learned in your first business. That knowledge never leaves you unless you end up with dementia or something. You get to keep that.
Okay, touch wood, no one here gets dementia. Thank you. But it is that, and there's a great community out there of people that have been there, done that, tried this, failed here, learned from that mistake, that can teach us things if we ask. And it's not scary to ask, and it's not a failure going, oh, I'm stuck in this, I need help. Like, that's why people like you have built academies that offer that advice, so we can learn from your mistakes, right? Learn what worked, what didn't work, and adapt it to our businesses.
Yeah.
And that is how we grow our business, and a successful one at that, not one that's going to close in 3 years because we didn't know our margins.
Exactly.
Fabulous. Well, thank you so much for being here. I've actually really enjoyed this chat. Probably learnt more than what I thought I was going to start with. If anyone wants to get in contact with Billie, I will drop links below just to help that out. But I've had so much fun. Thank you.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah.